Thank you, Dave. Good afternoon, Brown County. My name is Randy Seiler. I'm running for South Dakota Attorney General, and I grew up just down the road here in Harriet. Had some discussions earlier about, we spoke German on Main Street, I think, until I was about 9 or 10. And part of the best part of running is coming to events like this and seeing old friends, old classmates that I grew up with in Harriet, Mona, Al, Joy, and others from Java and around the country. So it's kind of like coming home. But following high school, I went to South Dakota State University as a young man, and I wasn't sure I was ready to be at South Dakota State University because my BAC and my GPA were about the same at that point in my career, which is never a good thing, especially from my parents' perspective. But at that point, we still had the draft, and I enlisted in the Air Force, spent a year in Vietnam, and I was always proud to be an American. But after spending a year in Vietnam as a young man, I realized how lucky, how fortunate I was to be an American. And that instills in you a commitment, a sense of idealism, really a feeling of wanting to come back to my home state and work for the betterment of South Dakota. So I was fortunate. I attended the best law school in South Dakota, University of South. There's only one, by the way. But following that, I clerked for a federal judge and went home to Mulbridge to practice law. Practiced law in Mulbridge for 14 years. The reason I decided to go home, I had opportunities to stay in Sioux Falls and other larger cities. It was basically both my parents were still alive, and it was absolutely the best decision that I ever made. To have that opportunity to spend those years with them, to share grandchildren, to share the love that they showed to me throughout my life. And whenever I get to northern South Dakota and Aberdeen or Harriet and Mulbridge, I always get a little nostalgic about growing up and being in this neck of the woods. So after Mulbridge, I spent 22 years with the U.S. Attorney's Office. I was a violent crime prosecutor for 14 years. I was lead counsel on over 600 federal felony cases. I tried 75 jury trials, and my opponent has tried, as a criminal prosecutor, 0. So he's a volunteer prosecutor down in Union County, and doesn't have any experience as a prosecutor. And, let me tell you, being Attorney General is an awfully difficult place to learn how to practice law. And I'm hoping that he won't have that opportunity to get my drift. So, when Brendan Johnson became U.S. Attorney, he asked me to be his deputy, and then when he went into private practice, President Obama appointed me as U.S. Attorney for South Dakota, and I served in that capacity for about 3 years. I stayed in that capacity until President Trump invited me to return to private practice. Following that, the timing was right. I made a decision that I wasn't ready to be put out to pasture, so to speak, that I wanted to continue to practice law, the kind of law that I've been practicing. I wanted to serve the kind of clients that I've been involved in. I wanted to work with victims of crime, and Attorney General was the opportunity to do that. The Attorney General's office for many years, AG stood for aspiring governor. That's not going to be the case if I get elected. I pledge to all of you, and I promise that I will not use the Attorney General's office to seek higher office or to play politics with the rule of law. The rule of law is under attack in this country, and it's time that we quit playing politics with it. I'm happy that MAGA stands for Mueller ain't going away, and Bob Mueller is ensuring that the rule of law in this country will be followed. MAGA also stands for my attorney got arrested. No. With that, I had a dust up at the state fair last week in terms of The Department of Public Safety, a taxpayer-funded agency, and the Secretary of the Department of Public Safety were at the State Fair on official business. They had Public Safety Day at the State Fair. And they bring in all of the departments from the Department of Public Safety to do outreach with the people. And that's a great thing, and that's the way it should be. You're bringing government to the people at the State Fair. You're there on official business, you're a taxpayer-funded employee, and you're there doing the people's business. That's all a good thing. Where that intersection of law and politics comes into play, though, is when you use that for partisan political purposes. And that's what the Secretary of the Department of Public Relations did. He went down to the Republican booth at the State Fair, sought out my opponent for Attorney General, who's running as a Republican, and asked him to be part of the official Department of Public Safety proceedings at the State Fair by allowing him to introduce the Highway Patrol K-9 demonstration. And that's just wrong. It's against the law. I contacted the Attorney General. I contacted the Beale County State's Attorney, and I'm filing a complaint on Monday with the South Dakota Government Accountability Board. It can't be business, it can't be politics as usual. And part of the alarming part of that was my opponent took photos while all of that was going on, posted them on Facebook, and they're still up there to this day. And so my opponent should have realized, one, he should have had the experience to realize, one, that it was against the law and he should not participate in it. Or two, if he didn't know, he certainly should have known. So with that, I just want to wrap up by saying my opponent's main proposal is to build a methamphetamine prison in western South Dakota where he can incarcerate individuals who have addiction issues with opioids and with methamphetamine. And he's indicated he wants to have a mental health wing in that western South Dakota prison so he can start incarcerating mentally ill people. And that's not the culture that I want to bring to the Attorney General's office. I think there's a lot of humanity in second chances. You can't treat addiction with incarceration. We need more community mental health center. It's wrong that Mike Milstead, as the Minnehaha County Sheriff, is the biggest mental health provider in South Dakota. We need to treat mental illness in the communities, not in jail. So as we go forward, I would appreciate your support and help me swat out crime in South Dakota. Thank you.